Yo, microphone check, make it a microphone check. Give it a microphone, I make the microphone dead. Don't step to me, newbie, I could truly be moody. I could have played the Grinch in the movies. I've been
Hello again, I'm Yogi with Yogi's Garage. Those of you who might recognize Olaf over here, a 2007 Audi A4 that I purchased from a Tote the Note lot here in Houston. Just to give you some background for those of you who don't know about Project Olaf, and feel free to click any of the links below that I'll be posting along with this video so you can follow along and kind of catch up on what's going on with this car. So I bought this car, 140,000 miles, immaculate service history. The car was not inspected when I bought it from the dealership, knowing that it was purchased out of state. Obviously, that's one of the first things you need to do when you register a car. That should have been a red flag for me right there, but based on its service history, I felt confident that I'd be able to take care of any problems that may arise with any type of issues with registration. Well, it could not pass the emissions test because the car had not finished its drive cycle, so the sensors were not ready. Apparently that could also mean that someone disconnected the battery recently. Kind of makes sense when you're buying a car from a dealership that they put in a new battery and probably didn't drive it around. But again, the car was not inspected. I was going to pay cash for the car. He had the title in hand. I took it. So anyway, it won't pass inspection. That's fine. I'll wait 2 weeks. My son's got to take the car up to Dallas anyway. I've got all the records, even though there's no license plate on the car. I had proof of ownership and insurance and anything that a police officer might need if they pull us over because we're driving with no plates. Because of the pandemic, trying to get in to pay your taxes and register the vehicle is very difficult here in Texas. It's by appointment only at this point. Appointments are about 4 to 6 weeks out. So more on that at some point. But anyway, the point is, today I'm going to be working on the oil pressure problem. So because the car could not pass emissions, my son replaced the upstream and downstream O2 sensors on this vehicle, drove it around a little bit trying to get those sensors to reset, and he still could not. And then it was throwing a check engine light, the P0420 code that everyone knows and loathes about this specific problem with the car. After he did that and he still could not clear the check engine code, I was up against the wall at this point because I had an appointment, as I had mentioned, October 1st, and it was November 25th, and we still could not get this car to reset. So I flew up to Dallas. You can watch that video as well. I flew up to Dallas bright and early on a Tuesday morning, picked up the car. I was back on the road by like 9:45. It was hi, bye, son, bye. Took the car, drove it. Drove beautifully all the way back to Houston. I did get pulled over. All my paperwork checked out, so that's great news. Anyway, the problem is I'm trying to keep the expenses on the vehicle low because I think I got a good deal on the car, replacing the parts that are necessary, and to me, replacing a catalytic converter on a car that's 140,000 miles old, I didn't like the idea. I did what any responsible and intelligent car owner would do, is get on the forums, start researching, because surely I'm not the only one who's had this kind of problem. And lo and behold, I'm not. You get on Audi, for example, the B7 A4 forum is all about emissions problems, low oil pressure. More on that in a moment. And so one of the threads that I followed took me down a path about to using a product to help clear out any problems with the old catalytic converter, was to pour a container of a product called Cataclean. I bought 2 of these at the time. So I did additional research, saw that a lot of people on YouTube were having success with it blowing out a catalytic converter. So I decided to do that on Olaf here. Well, what people are saying online is you get your gas tank to about 1/8 of a tank, which is basically the bottom of your tank, put this in, and then drive the hell out of your car, right? Push it hard. Okay, confirmed it, 2 channels, same thing, drive it hard. Even this one says drive it you know, like it says normal driving on this thing. I had already driven the car up to like College Station and back because I had a little over a quarter of a tank, and we all know that these cars here are pretty economical on the road. So it took me about an hour and 15 minutes in one direction to get the gas below the quarter of a tank, but not low enough to get to the eighth of a tank. So I kept driving and made it all the way back to my neighborhood, pulled off, took a quick little video saying, look at me, I'm about to pour this into my Audi A4, took the car out, drove it pretty aggressively, nothing too hard, nothing 100 miles an hour or anything, fast acceleration, highway mile acceleration, slowing down and then accelerating like stop and go traffic, for example. Everything seemed to be going fine. And guess what pops up on the dash? Low oil pressure, basically, is what that is. I hadn't seen that. I hadn't owned an A4 enough to know that the B7s had a problem with the low oil pressure. A lot of people do have the problem, but it just didn't pop up. So I didn't even think twice about it. I just thought, that's just a code that's thrown because I have this crap in there. Well, I make it down the road and the car starts going into limp mode, which is what it feels like. It felt like more like this car had drank some really nasty stuff and was having a hard time in the combustion chamber. So I slowed down, I kept my RPMs relatively low. It seemed like I was getting low oil pressure sensors around the 2,000 to 3,500 RPM range. Turned down one of my neighborhood streets about 3 to 4 miles from my house, and the car just conks out as I'm driving it. I'm doing 30 miles an hour, boom, it's dead. Pull over, check my temperature in the car. I had my OBD scanner. I was getting additional codes around cylinder misfires and things like that. Again, I chalked that up to this thing just burning in the system and all the sensors disliking the data coming back. I continued, I stopped, so the car stalled on me, and then I tried to start it. And the weird thing is the behavior was like I had a dead battery. This is like dead battery. I mean, it wouldn't even turn over. It's like, whoop. You feel the starter kind of lurch, with just not enough charge in the battery to get that starter going. Yeah, so luckily I was, letting the car cool off. I was like, I'll just let it cool off. I was beating it up. I'm not gonna freak out just yet. I'd wait, 10 minutes, I tried, and it would crank just a little bit more. So I was thinking, hope. So I'm still waiting outside my car, and it's not a very busy neighborhood, but busy enough to have enough traffic that people notice me. One dude turned around in his truck, nice guy. He it does roadside assistance, and he was off, and he came by, and he had a freaking jumper box with him. So anyway, I told him the story of what was going on in the car, and he asked me to turn the car over as well, and he heard it. He's like, it sounds like the battery. So he says, you mind if I just jump it? And I was like, well, yeah, no, I don't mind at all. Otherwise I'll be stuck. What else are we gonna do? And it cranked up, but boy, did it sound nasty. It sounded terrible. It's hard to explain, a lot of clanking. Anyway, sounded like shit. How about that? So I turned the engine off. I started to back up, and it started, barely, but it did start on its own. So weird behavior there. And then the next thing that happened, I'm going off of memory here. So the next thing that's happened, I carried a jug, like a 2.5 gallon small tank of gas in my trunk, by the way, when I took this car out, because I knew I was going to get the gas down to 1/8. I didn't want to burn on this stuff and then get stranded somewhere. So nice thinking. I told the dudes, you know what? I'm going to put some fresh gas in that thing. I think it doesn't like this shit. Let's just put some, and man, we put it in there and the car held. It actually, it was still throwing a low oil pressure. The car stayed running on its own at a very rough idle, but I just let it sit there so it could continue to burn through this stuff. And then I eventually got confident enough after I noticed that the engine was idling better and I was giving it some revs and it wasn't throwing the low oil pressure anymore. So I decided to take the car home and limp it back as quickly as limp can go, because I really didn't want to go fast at it. But anytime I got it over 2,000 RPM, low oil pressure sensor hit. So, I don't know. Line is in the process of trying to resolve an emissions problem. It appears that I may have broken a portion, some kind of component inside of the oil pump. That's what the consensus is at this point. How did I come to that consensus? I got a mechanical oil pressure gauge, tapped into the oil pressure sensor or the sender, and tap into that and figure out what's going on with the engine based on idle RPMs, cold and hot. So I'll have more of that in the video, or I'll be linking it. Weird behavior in the oil, idle, 38 psi with cold at a cold temperature. So not great, but it's hot here in Houston. So the engine, even at cold, it's still like 100 degrees in there. So fine. Where it started acting really wonky is when I would accelerate to the 1,000 and 2,000 markers, which is usually a good test to see, because those are your baselines on what good oil pressure should be at those levels. Cold and then hot would be roughly the gauge in your car at the 12 o'clock mark for your coolant temperature. Or if you're using an OBD sensor like I have, about 174 degrees, if you want to be precise. This is about when you can start taking your hot temperatures because your car is ready. Anyway, would only get up to like 39 or 40 psi at a 2,000 and 3,000 RPM. So something's constricted in my oil system here. Something that I did with this, along with the extreme stress I put on the car, the car's not leaking any fluids. Oil level was good. Oil was good on this car. We just changed it, if you recall in the video. We changed the oil in this damn car. So I checked that. But it still just didn't make any sense. So here's what I'm going to do today. Before I go because I am not going to replace an oil pump on an Audi A4. To get to it is insane. For those of you who don't know and you want a quick rundown, you got to drop the subframe. Yes, the subframe to get to all the bolts on the oil pan. Now, I'm about to change an oil pan gasket on a Ford Fusion, and the worst thing I had to do on that one is take the exhaust manifold off so I could get to the bolts and make enough room to get the damn thing out of there. That's it. I don't have to drop a subframe. I don't need a motor reinforcement frame across the car here holding the engine up to look at my oil pump. What are you thinking, Audi? Anyway, that was a big issue with me. I was like, I love Audis, but after the oil pressure problems that I got with this car, it makes me wonder some of the engineering choices that these guys and gals are making when they're building these cars. Why do I feel that way? Well, once I grab onto a nugget of information, I'm a lot like a lot of you people out there, I'm sure, I'll go down the rabbit hole and follow a thread or a topic until I'm satisfied with all the answers that I get back. I like to get all of it and get a kind of an average of what people are saying and make a judgment based on that. So I went down the rabbit hole on oil pressure problems with Audis. And for those Audi lovers out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a major problem with oil pressure and oil consumption. Those two problems in Audis are its Achilles heel as far as I'm concerned. Love the car, love the way it handles, love the safety features, love. But as a do-it-yourself auto mechanic, it sucks. It really does. Because if you took this car to the dealership, remember I paid $5,000 for this car. So if I was to take this car to the dealership, the estimate that I'm expecting to get is between $2,000 and $2,500. Why? Well, because if you're gonna go all the way in there to pull the damn oil pan down to look at your oil pump, then you're more than likely gonna wanna change out a few things while you're in there. I know I would. If I did it myself, I would make sure I had all the parts that I could just freshen up, all of the mechanics underneath there that I could get to while I'm down there. What else are you gonna do? And you've already surgically opened your vehicle just to get to a stupid oil pump. So anyway, enough ranting. My point, what I'm doing today is I believe that there may be something in the oil itself that is causing constriction somewhere and throwing that low oil pressure warning, or giving me the actual results on the mechanical gauge. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drain the oil. It kills me because, you know, I didn't know the 0 weight 40 trick with changing oil on these cars cheaply until now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me know and I'll do a video on buying inexpensive, not cheap, inexpensive oil for foreign automobiles like German cars that everyone insists you need to buy expensive crap for it. No, you don't. More on that later. Anyway, I'm gonna open up the oil filter. I didn't buy a man oil filter, but I didn't buy a crappy one either. Anyway, Amazon special, I bought it, replaced it. The oil filter could have compressed. With all of this crap that I put in there and the strain that I put on the engine, the oil filter could have been trashed. Something could have melted off and got into. Worst case is that my pickup is jam-packed with melted plastic. That would be awful. Where it could come from, I don't know. I mean, I've seen some oil pans on VW Jettas that have some kind of baffle in it that's made of plastic that breaks off and melts in the hot oil and gets stuck in your pickup. So it's possible with VW, anything's possible, okay? I'm gonna drain the oil. I'm gonna try a few other things, right? I bought an endoscope. Seriously doubt I'm gonna be able to see anything. I might get lucky, but I'm gonna jam that endoscope up through the oil plug and see if I see anything on the pickup. I'm hoping to just point it up a little bit, put the light in there, and see if I can see the oil pickup. I doubt it. I haven't done it. I haven't seen anybody stick a endoscope into an oil pan before. And then I'll try going through the oil filter as well and see what I see. Or the oil may give me a sign. When I drain the oil and I look at it in the pan, I'll look for signs of metal in the oil. So stick around. I hope you enjoyed this introduction video. I apologize for the ranting. I think this is going to be a really good story, or a continuation of the story with Project Olaf over here, because despite all the ranting and the emotional feelings that I have about the car, and unlike a lot of people on the AutoZine forums, or any of the other Audi forums for that matter, there's something about these cars that just, you know, make you love them. They're like a redheaded stepsister or something. You know, you have to love them, but at the same time you're like, okay, she's not too bad, right? So it's a great car. You've seen the interior of this vehicle. If you haven't, again, visit my site, please. Subscribe, like me. I'm a pretty cool dude, and I do some stupid stuff, and I know a lot of people are gonna tell me this was the stupidest thing I could have done, or they would have said, well, the instructions said a quarter tank, not an eighth of a tank. Look on YouTube. The people who actually use it, the testers out there, eighth of a tank, and then drive your car like hell so it burns this stuff, and whatever it releases into the catalytic converter disposes of any type of debris or anything hampering the performance of the cat. So all because I had a catalytic converter problem, now I got freaking low oil pressure, and Olaf is back in here. My S5, after Yogi's garage, is back together. My S5, which I have a few months left with, is stuck outside looking like a pig. Dirty and dusty. Thanks for watching Yogi's Garage. Don't forget to like and subscribe, even when I say that.